Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello.
Okay, one question we get asked more than any other is...
What's the best order for my gain pedals?
6+ years of doing the show and we consistently get asked this
every single week in our Monday viewers, comments and questions episode. Pretty much after every video in the comments section, it is easily the most common question asked of us and probably asked in the pedal world in general. So let's start from the beginning. What's a gain pedal? What's a gain pedal?
A gain pedal is a pedal that gives you more. And it can be more level, more overdrive or distortion.
Yeah, we tend to think of them as overdrive pedals, distortion pedals, fuzz pedals, EQs, compressors. Could be any of the above, but most commonly we're talking about overdrive pedals, boosts and distortions.
Indeed.
3 of which we have on the board there. Trouble is, what's the problem with that question, Dan?
Well, there is a massive problem with that question. It's too big. You haven't defined what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's the wrong question.
Yeah.
One thing that pedal show is all about is there are no answers, only better questions. And in this sense, instead of asking what's the best order for my gain pedals, the better question is, what am I trying to achieve?
Absolutely.
Then comes the hard bit. Because what you're trying to achieve is a combination of what a gain pedal does, right? So let's take 2 of the 3 pedals on the board there, fairly typical, the Noble's ODR1 natural overdrive and the Ibanez TS808 tube screamer, both absolute classics through history, or at least recent history, from about 1978 anyway. They each have 3 controls and they are a clue to the things that a gain pedal will do for you.
Indeed. So we have the amount of saturation, the amount of how much limiting. And as we turn that up, it changes what happens to the signal that goes into it, okay? And then...
Yeah, so number 1, how much overdrive?
Yep.
Number 2, how much volume?
How much volume, how much output. And remember, these things are interactive, right? So yeah, how much output, how much level are we going to get out of the other side of the pedal?
Yeah. Do you want it more overdriven, less overdriven, louder or less loud? And finally, tone. So on most overdrive pedals, you'll have some kind of tone control. What do you want the EQ to do? Do you want it to get more bassy? Do you want it to get more trebly? And as he said, those 3 things tend to interact. Now, there are lots more overdrive pedals out there that have more complex functions on them, but by and large, the classics through history tend to have some control over gain, some control over volume, and some control over tone or EQ. And those are the 3 things that you're going to change when you use just one pedal. And then, of course, when you stack them together, those things become interactive.
Yeah, so understanding, instead of what comes first, distortion or overdrive, we can actually think about, how am I using this pedal?
Yeah.
And how is that going to interact with other pedals in the chain?
Yeah. Let's start with the ODR1. So those 3 things that we talked about, let's explain some of that. So you'll see on the top panel there, drive, rather the confusingly named spectrum, which is the tone control, and the level. So how loud it is on the right, the EQ in the middle, and the drive on the left. We'll just show you the basics of an overdrive pedal. Daniel, please.
First, here's my clean tone.
Andy!
Come on! So, Fender Deluxe Reverb.
Question 1, I want my sound louder, but not too distorted. Drive low, level high.
Indeed.
Question 2, I'd like my sound very distorted, but not so loud. Question 3, or at least desire number 3, I'd like it louder and more distorted, but I'd like the EQ to change.
Indeed.
Complicating factor number 1. Number 5, the EQ can change the volume too. Pretty much any run-of-the-mill normal overdrive pedal will have some control over those 3 things.
Yeah.
And
Now,
the relationship is the same.
absolutely. Now, this may seem very pedestrian, and of course, you all know this already. But here's the most important thing. Well, a very important thing to consider. Those 3 controls, and we think about gain structure, right? We think about, as we turn the drive up, we're increasing the level of that input signal so it distorts. And then the output level gives us that master volume. But that is not the start of our gain stage. So, like for example, this telly has got quite a lot of output. Okay, so when I play, this pedal set up like this. Without changing the pedal settings, and I get Mick to play through his Strat.
I'll turn the volume up to 10.
So I think what a lot of us tend to forget is that this, not just the guitar, but what we're doing with our hands, this is the most important signal generator. It's the start of our gain stage. So whether we're going... the way that we attack the notes, it determines how much signal is going into the gain stage. So it's not just about, whether we have humbuckers or single coils or whatever. It all starts with how we attack the strings.
Absolutely. Let's do that exact same thing with another overdrive pedal just to prove that the fundamentals are the same. Go for it, Dan. So far, we hope there are no surprises.
Indeed.
Those of you that use overdrive pedals will be familiar with that relationship. Output volume, overdrive level, EQ. Now, so when do we come on to stacking? And the question is, what order should my pedals go in? The point is, it depends on how you use them. So the very first thing to say is, if you're never going to stack those 2 overdrive pedals together, it doesn't matter what order they go in. Sounds obvious? It's a point that can get lost.
Yeah, because you might have your tube screamer to do one specific sound and the ODR to do a completely separate specific sound. If you never intend on having one together, it doesn't really matter. You turn one off and turn the other one on to go to that sound. End of.
When there's just one overdrive pedal in the game, everything's pretty straightforward because you can manipulate those controls to do what you want to do to answer your question. You don't even have the question, which order should I stack my overdrive pedals in, because you've only got one. The question is, do I want it more overdriven? Do I want it louder? Do I want to change the EQ? It's also worth mentioning at this point that another massive variable in your signal chain is, of course, your amp.
Indeed.
What you've been hearing so far is the amp set to a fairly clean sound, and before the end of the video we'll make it overdriven to give you an idea of that. But if it helps to think about it in a different way, just view your amp as another overdrive pedal. How much it's overdriving will affect the tone in more or less the same way as having another overdrive pedal, which is what we're going to get into now. So now we're into discussions of headroom.
Yes.
Overdrive and saturation.
Yes.
And all of that. Just explain briefly, Dan, the concept of clean and overdrive.
Okay. A clean signal is when we have enough room in our amplification device to take our signal and amplify it before it starts to distort. So a clean signal, we have headroom, our signal goes in, and there's plenty of room so that, you know, it basically amplifies exactly what's coming out of here without, not coloring it, but distorting it, without limiting that signal.
We'll attempt to do a very, very simplified explanation of that by virtue of a diagram here.
Indeed.
Dan, if you could, I'll play.
Yep.
You turn up the drive control, and on screen you'll see sort of what's happening, sort of, kinda.
Okay.
All right. Oh yeah, I need that. In a very simplistic form, that kind of explains what's happening. You increase the amplitude of
The signal going in to
and then it gets to the point where it can't get any louder, so it just starts to distort.
Indeed.
That's what's happening.
And the way that the pedal distorts, you know, depending on the design of the circuit, will dictate the character of that distortion, you know, and we've done videos before about all the different sorts of distortion, but basically that's what's happening. We have our level of headroom going in. As we increase that signal, it gets to the limits, and then those edges start to square off, and then we get our distortion.
In the context of this discussion, headroom means how much you've got left before it distorts, in the context of this discussion.
Perfect.
So you see what's coming next. If one of the pedals in your chain is distorting a lot, if you shove more distortion into it, it has one effect. If it's not distorting very much, it has a different effect.
Indeed. And it all comes back to headroom and how much dynamic range we have left in the pedal. If we're distorting a little bit and we put more volume in the input, then the input signal increases and it's going to give us more distortion, but we still have somewhere to go. So it will also give us a level boost. If we're distorting a lot and that signal has, you know, basically nowhere to go, and then we increase the signal at the input, there's no more headroom. So all we're going to get is more distortion.
Which can be cool. Can also be that moment in your gig or set or rehearsal or whatever it is you're doing where you go, great, time for my solo. Step on the extra pedal.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Yeah.
Just do a quick example of that, and then we'll move on to some actual practical examples of sounds that we would use, which hopefully will nail all this on. So, in the case of let's talk about the ODR1 and the Tube Screamer for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we set up the Tube Screamer with a very overdriven sound.
Okay.
And by very overdriven, I'll turn the overdrive up to 10. Woo! Tube Screamer is not the most overdrivey pedal in the world, so it's not super saturated.
Sure.
But anyway, it should be a nice lot of overdrive. Let's see. one kind of overdrive sound. Similarly, I'm going to set the ODR1 up with a lot of overdrive.
Okay.
Because we like a lot of overdrive,
Indeed.
right? Don't want it too loud because, you know, you got to be playing underneath the singing and stuff. So.
Right.
Couple of nice overdrive sounds.
Yeah, we hear the different shape there from the design of the pedal, but yes, very nice.
So obviously now we're going to put one on after the other and see what happens. So as cool as the Tube Screamer sounds, it's in this context, the way it's set up, it's probably not the best boost option to lift you louder if you want that sound from the ODR1 but louder.
Sure.
So what do we need to do?
Okay. Instead of running the ODR1 into a distorted signal, we don't have anywhere to go really at the input, what we need to do is run our ODR signal into something that has the headroom and can lift the signal, has the volume capability to lift it. So instead of running into a Tube Screamer, we're going to run into the EP boost. And the EP boost is a clean boost, right? It has the headroom to be able to take our signal. So what we'll do, just to start with, I'll just get you to play clean. Then I'm going to turn the EP boost on so that you can hear the amount of level, the amount of lift that we get just from the EP boost.
Yeah, without too much overdrive either. So I'll play something similar.
So the EP booster has much more dynamic range than the Tube Screamer set up the way it is.
Yeah, if it had those three same controls that the other pedals have, it would have the gain on 0, it would have the master on 10, and it would have the tone somewhere in the middle.
Indeed. So I'll turn the ODR1 on, and then I'm going to put the EP booster on and have a listen to the difference.
It's so loud it was blowing a mic preamp out. So hopefully that nails on the very basic concept, is if you want to get louder, you need something cleaner. Overdrive pedal 1, bit of overdrive. If you want it louder, it needs to be cleaner after and with boost. If you want the opposite, kind of demonstrated by running the ODR1 into the Tube Screamer gainy. Great. So back to our questions at the top. What are the 3 things that an overdrive pedal can give you?
Level, distortion, limiting, and shaping.
Yeah. So level, if you want it louder, put something cleaner after. If you want it more distorted, put something more distorted after.
Indeed.
It sounds so obvious, it almost doesn't bear saying. However, when you get lost in that melee of which order to stack things. Now, so each pedal has its own particular tonal characteristic.
Yeah.
But we're here to sort of argue that that's really, really important. However, what's more important is actually how they're set. How much gain you've got, how much level you've got, and what the relationship between those 2 things is.
Absolutely. So another option for a solo boost is to use a shaping pedal. So the Tube Screamer, not changing position, we're just going to change the way that we use the Tube Screamer. We're going to turn the distortion down, thus giving us more headroom, and turn the volume up. But what we are going to utilize is the shape of the Tube Screamer, the way it limits that bottom end and gives us that pokey mid-range. And when we're talking about solo boosts, sometimes changing the shape of the EQ can actually be more desirable than just giving you a volume lift.
Yeah, because too much volume lift, we all know about that. As glorious as it is, you do get moaned at a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll get Mick to play something similar. I'm going to turn the overdrive down and the level up. And this is what happens when we use the Tube Screamer as an overdrive boost.
Yeah, man.
It sounds ace.
Yeah.
And what we're relying on the character of the Tube Screamer to, instead of giving us a massive volume boost, we're shaping, and that shaping is actually what's going to cut through.
Yeah.
So a really great way to do it. Using the Tube Screamer and that as opposed to using a Tube Screamer for just distortion, which is obviously great, but that shape, so cool.
Okay, hopefully that explains the basic principles of it. What we'll do for the remainder of the show is come up with some specific examples of orders of these pedals. We will change the order a little bit, but try and hammer home the point that the order of the pedals is important, but what's more important is how they're set.
Indeed.
Okay, I'll start, right? So no matter what I do, wherever I play, I'm going to be looking for 3 sounds. One is a sound that is clean enough and loud enough for me to play clean parts.
Right.
But also, if there's a bit of clean lead, it's also loud enough for that just about.
Okay.
2 ways you can do that. One is you can set your amp loud enough for the clean sound, or the other way is you could use a boost, a clean boost. The benefits of using a clean boost as one of your gain pedals is with a guitar like a Strat, for example, fairly low output, single coil pickups. Having the clean boost on can help it stay a bit bright when you turn the volume down. So for that reason, I would use a clean boost.
And a lot of people use that like an always on pedal, right?
Yeah.
For that's very thing. They're just to give everything a lift all the time into the amp.
And it can help you not have to work quite so hard. So here's the sound of the Strat into the Deluxe Reverb. I'll go into position 2, which is a typical sort of Strat clean sound. And that can be really nice if you're playing like a choppy rhythm bit. So I don't know. Also did the middle and position 4 there. All good. Where that can become a problem is if you've then got to play a bit of lead or a single note part, it can fall away a bit. It's a nice enough tone, but in the melee of a band mix, you're probably going to get lost. Doesn't really work. So what I need from there is one level of clean boost. And for that, a clean boost is great. EP booster, great example. Let's set it to about there. You get this much boost.
You can hear how that's working with the amp. It's sort of pushing the amp a little bit sort of on the edge.
Yeah.
You know,
There is a flying beast in here, by the way. Apologies for that.
you're apologising on behalf of the Flying Beast.
Yeah. We're on a farm, so flying beasts are us.
But yeah, so you can hear how without that on, the amp has got this much headroom, right? There's so much room to go. But with that on, then we're getting closer to the edge, right?
Gives me a little more dynamic response under the fingers, so I get a little more snap when I dig in harder. But also if I play softer, it doesn't just fall away to nothing.
Sure.
Beautiful. Really useful for that. Now, a lot of people would run their clean boost or any kind of boost to the front of their chain. I don't use it to the front of my chain for a couple of reasons. All will become revealed in a second. So the second sound I would want, so that means I can cover the clean bits. It means if there's a little bit of single note clean lead, I can cover that. The second sound I want is a kind of a fatter rhythm sound that's got a bit of overdrive on it that can sit beneath,
A vocal.
sit within a track. So it's not like a big loud overdrive sound. It's something that can sit within vocals. For that, I would use the ODR one because it's the sort of the most full frequency response sounding of these particular pedals. Probably wouldn't use quite that much overdrive that we had before. I'd probably have it somewhere here, set to somewhere around what we would call unity volume, i.e. the sound of your clean sound is roughly the same as your overdrive sound, maybe just a bit louder.
Yeah.
And then have it set so when I put my guitar volume off a bit, it cleans up a bit, but it doesn't get too much quieter. So something like that, you know, without spending too much time on it.
So by reducing, with the volume up full, you're maximising the amount of signal going.
Everything at 2 o'clock.
Very good. So with your volume up full, you're maximising the amount of signal going into the pedal and you know, therefore an amount of saturation. But when you reduce that volume, you're not really reducing. So when you reduce the signal going in, you're not really reducing the level coming out. You're reducing the amount of saturation and cleaning it up a little bit.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
If I was to turn down into the EP boost, it would get quieter.
Yes.
Because there's no saturation to go away. In an overdrive pedal, the saturation gets less. It gets a bit cleaner. It stays roughly the same volume.
Yeah.
Bear in mind what we said, that this is your first gain stage. So
yes.
And you'll hear as I roll the guitar volume back a bit, it just cleans up a bit. And that's a sound that's not going to get me arrested. It's super quiet, really, and will sit underneath the vocals no problem. So if you're playing some sort of rock song, great. Now, that's no good for a solo because it's just not loud enough. So now I've got two options for a solo. One is I can take that sound and make it louder. First with the EP boost, shouldn't really get any more distorted. It will get quite a bit louder.
Yep.
So. Clean amp, considerably louder. There's a great way to boost the ODR1. Nice solo boost. Happy days. I'd probably just continue that with the Tube Screamer. So I would have a different version of what's going on in the ODR1. So a nice mid-gain sound, which would give me... Now, what we're going to invoke with the Tube Screamer in my particular case is I'm a big fan of fat mid-range Strat type sounds.
Yep.
Tube Screamer does that by nature of its design as a pedal. So if I'd set it up on its own, I would set up the Tube Screamer something like this. You hear how different it is from the ODR1.
It's so funny because with the gain dimed on that and you hear all the fizzy edges, but turned down like that, though, that little bit of fizz around the edges makes so much sense with the Strat.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So now what I have, if I just had the EP boost on, I've got that lovely, lovely clean Strat sound. Dare we... Okay, it's into that territory. If I now add the Tube Screamer, what you'll get is a much more mid-focused version of that. So. That puts me, for the kind of stuff I like playing, right in that on the edge of feedback territory. So if we now add the ODR1 in, I rather hope that's what will start happening.
Okay.
Quite a lot of overdrive. Actually, we can add more overdrive. I'm just going to turn it down a bit because it is blowing the mic preamps out. I think we could get that quite overdriven because what the Tube Screamer is doing is
The shaping.
clearing it up quite considerably by knocking off a lot of the bottom end, and then we're into this, you know. So here with the Strat, I've gone from super clean straight into the amp, nice funky rhythm. I've gone to clean boosted. Again, not too much overdrive, but nicely louder and still articulate.
Yep.
Tube Screamer gives that shape. ODR1 provides loads of overdrive. All together, that's a lead tone that's going to get you heard anywhere.
It's like, with them all on, it's like a really beautiful, smooth fuzz. You know what I mean? It's got, because it has all the saturation and limiting that a fuzz has, but with none of the spittiness and all those artifacts that you can get sometimes with the fuzz, which are very cool. But it's like, you know, all of those, the elements that in that sound are there. It was really, really cool.
It's cool, and I'd be super happy with that for any gig. So, with apologies so far to humbucker fans who get tired of hearing so much single coil, I won't change anything. Here's how the Leicester fares in that exact environment.
Right.
totally usable.
Unreal.
Deluxe reverb.
Yeah, man.
You probably saw I had to turn the boost level down on the EP a little bit because it was starting to push the mic pre's. But actually, in the context of a band, it'd be great. You just hear a bit more of this guitar. That is how I would stack those pedals.
Yep.
Most gain.
Yep.
Least gain.
Yep.
Second most gain. Shapey.
Beautiful.
Dan's going to show you a completely different way to do it.
Okay. Finger snap. And back in the room.
I cannot snap with my left hand. Isn't it funny?
Very good.
What's that all about? You'd think this hand would be stronger, wouldn't you? Because it does all this business.
Oh, yeah, but that's more dexterous.
This one does the punching.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't punch anyway.
Okay, so I have my pedals in basically the opposite order that Mick, and they're set up a little bit differently. So, again, Telecaster straight into Deluxe Reverb. Now, the way I set up my gain stage, I have it a little bit louder, but my main overdrive tone is with the volume on the guitar down a little bit.
So you mean your core overdrive sound?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, again, clean tone here. This on, and this just off a little bit.
Dan's main route to doing that for years and years and years is a Boss BD2 blues driver, same way Andy Timmons does it. If you want to watch a recent show we did.
Yeah.
The
Keeley Mod blues driver. Actually, Andy, as he played my pedal, he went, yeah, I'll be taking that back to America with me, which is beautiful.
So overdrive pedal, a little bit backed off on the volume.
Yeah. And what that then gives me is a cleaner overdrive sound and then a little bit more distorted overdrive sound just off the volume.
Yep. I'm smiling. Telecaster, nice overdrive pedal, deluxe reverb. Happy days.
It's magic, right?
Yeah.
Now, because I'm not using a huge amount of distortion in the ODL1, it actually has some headroom.
Yeah.
Right? If I want a more distorted sound, I use a clean boost into the ODR1. And so all the frequencies come up, and then we get it's like a separate distortion pedal.
So it will get louder, but it won't get as loud as when we had it after the ODR1.
Exactly. So.
What you saw me do there was turn the EP booster up from where it is now, roughly 10 or 11 o'clock, all the way to full. What you will have heard is more distortion, not too much extra volume.
Yeah.
Play softly a minute. Compare that with if the Nobles isn't on, how much extra level the EP booster is giving. Let's nail that on. The amp is set cleaner.
Yeah.
It is overdriving a little bit, but it's set cleaner. Therefore, it has the available headroom to take all the extra volume that the EP booster is giving it. The Nobles ODR1 does not have the available headroom. Therefore, when you stuff the EP booster in the front, all it does is get more distorted.
Yeah. And whereas Mick was using the EP booster as his clean tone, I'm doing that with the ODR1 and backing off a little bit. I never really play really clean.
No.
You know what I mean? I always have a little bit of saturation on that. And so I would have that on, or the blues driver or whatever would be on like 90% of the time.
Yeah. And if you do play clean, he'll turn the volume down a little bit and just pick softer.
Yeah.
That'll be your clean sound.
It's all controlled by dynamics of picking and by the volume pedal.
So again, let's nail it on again. What order should I put my gain pedals in? Well, there are many people watching this, I hope, who will go to their grave saying that EP... Well, I hope they don't go to their grave, but you know what I'm saying. They'll swear blind that the EP booster must come first or it must come last. You need context.
Yeah.
I've just shown you a way that I would prefer to use it last. Dan is showing you a way he would prefer to use it first, and it all depends on how the other pedals are set, so it's all about context.
Absolutely. Now, again, if I'm looking for a heavier, more focused tone, it's the Tube Screamer into the ODR1. And what we're expecting is just to tighten up that bottom end a little bit and a bit more focus in the mid-range.
You will recognise this. Many metal records have been recorded this way, where you'll take a really heavily gained amp, such as a dual rectifier or a PV50 150 or a crank Marshall, and you'll hit it with a Tube Screamer in the front with not much overdrive and loads of level, used purely to shape that mid-range and carve out some bottom end. Been used in heavy recordings like that forever. Dan is going to sort of maybe not go full metal, but it's the same process.
Yeah.
I always smile when I hear a Tube Screamer because I love that mid-range. I love it.
It's great. So the bridge pickup on a Telecaster is actually really thick, you know, and I love it for the heavier stuff. And the Tube Screamer into that sort of a sound just focuses it. Now, the EP booster at the front end, same thing I was doing before by giving more gain without changing the shape of it too much.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing into the Tube Screamer. So with them all on. So for me, it's less about massive volume lift and it's more about the amount of gain and shaping.
That might be more or less appropriate to your own situation.
Exactly.
Certainly if you're on a stage where you're miking up those huge jumps in volume can be problematic for the front of house. In some bands, if you're not mic'd up, or in other situations, you need that level of volume difference. So it's how you approach it. So what order should my gain pedals go in? Well, what are you trying to achieve?
Exactly.
Are you trying to achieve a thicker, fuller, more distorted sound? Are you trying to achieve a louder, more focused sound? Are you trying to achieve a solo boost? So one thing that Dan doesn't have there is a really loud solo boost.
Indeed. Yeah.
So what would you do?
I'd stick another EP boost on the other end of it. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's enough, Dan.
I think so as well. I think that shows you the fundamentals of, the structure of gain and the shaping. So instead of asking what order do my overdrive pedals go in, you define what you want to do. And that, I think that goes through all that.
And that is universal. We may not have chosen your 3 particular gain stages. It might involve an EQ pedal. Of course, that's all about the shape. Might also be about the level. Might be different kinds of boosts. Might be overdrives. Might be distortions. The fundamental is the same.
Yeah.
Do you stick the most overdriven first? Do you stick it last? Do you stick it in the middle? Depends what you want to do with it.
Exactly. And once the thing is as well, you can't think your way through this. You once you've got those concepts, then it's time to experiment.
Yeah.
Then it's time to work out actually which pedals are going to interact the way that I want. But it will give you a place to start.
Groovy
Indeed. That was fun.
That was fun. I'm reappreciating the EP booster after all these years.
It does sound pretty mega with the Strat.
Sounds pretty mega, full stop.
Yeah, indeed.
Nice to rediscover things.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Also, a massive thank you to our preferred retailers in the UK and Europe is...
Anderton's Music of Guildford in Surrey, where you can buy all that stuff.
Apparently my grammar's wrong there. I should be saying in the UK and Europe are.
It depends if companies are singular or plural. We used to have stand-up shouting rows about it in the office. Companies are singular. Sorry.
Brilliant. Okay. Also, our dear friends in Australia.
Our dear friends in Australia are...
Pedal Empire. Matt. Yes. Okay.
And the guys at Pedal Empire.
Yeah. Pedal Empire
the business, which is our exclusive preferred retailer in Australia, is Pedal Empire.
Very good. Very good.
Please check them out. Links below and all that malarkey.
Yep. A massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merch, pedals and strings and T-shirts and hats,
all that stuff.
And all the stuff.
Please buy stuff from thatpedalshowstore.com. It's how we primarily fund this show. Also, big shout to our patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your support. We do monthly giveaways, and you can hear the VCQ podcast on a Monday if you are a patron.
Yes, and finally for our mates in Australia, not even Australia, our mates in America, if you're so inclined and you want to, buy a pedal or so, head to thatpedalshop.com.
Yes, thatpedalshop.com if you're in the US or Canada. Man, I need to lie down after all that.
Yeah.
We need to find an easier way of doing that.
Okay.
Or just play the guitar more.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.